This is America's Mayor Live. And live, as you can see behind me, from New York City. And what you're looking at right now is you're looking at the New York skyline and you're looking toward the Hudson River from about the area of Times Square. Right below me is Times Square, or actually 3 blocks away. And this would be the area where the ball drops on New Year's and on July 3rd at midnight, as we enter July 4th and the 250th anniversary of the United States. There was a beautiful ball drop ceremony scheduled to be similar to New Year's Eve. They had built a great ball representing 2026, the 250th anniversary of the greatest nation on earth. But the mayor, Mondambi, has canceled it, and there's going to be some kind of private ceremony. I guess it's going to be done, live on tape, and which is what reality is now, because the mayor believes the city is too dangerous to have it. Now, it could be the police department also. But the police department may be doing it as part of I shouldn't say this, but they may be doing it based on reality, or they may be doing it as a way of pressuring the mayor to supply the police that make it impossible to have the ceremony. The theory is that having been the city of New York has done a pretty good job of hiding the fact that they defunded the police. Now, that was done under de Blasio, who was a communist like the present mayor, but a less committed one and a less serious, it's hard to describe. But de Blasio was sort of a lazy person, so that his communism just wasn't effective. This guy is much more enthusiastic communist. And de Blasio defunded the police when everybody else did by $1 billion. That $1 billion has never, ever been put back. Adams fought hard to get it back. He never did get it back. Mondambi would like to increase it rather than decrease it, and he's never going to put it back. It's hard enough to have him keep up the present depleted status of the police department. The police commissioner has made it clear that she and the department believe they're 6,000 officers down from a level that would be, I don't even think optimum, but acceptable to govern a city this size with the crowds that come in. So therefore, combination of the police department and the mayor have canceled all outdoor celebrations surrounding the World Cup, which will be a massive moneymaker for the city, particularly this area of the city that I'm in right now. These are the tourist hotels around Times Square, and it's a large area around that would be defined as Times Square. The idea that these public events are going to be canceled will cut into that revenue that they're expecting and that they need, because New York City is technically bankrupt right now, with no plan other than to spend more money on communist projects like free groceries for people, free childcare, free transportation. He's not getting that, but he's proposing. The free grocery stores are being built, and he has a budget of 70 million for it. And the first one alone of the 7 or so was 30 million, which all of the grocery store owners and the supermarket owners who are big business say theirs typically cost half that. So at that rate, we're looking more at about 200 million to build these free grocery stores, and then of course then to stock them, so that in essence the people in New York who are working will feed the people who either are not working or don't feel they're making enough money. Is that communism? Of course, that's communism. Um, so that has this city spinning around with basically spinning, and then spitting people out. The city is now clearly ahead of its rivals that sometimes beat them, New Jersey and California, in emitting people or having people despise the government so much that they leave. Um, so just to get you up to date on where we are in uh, the whole situation with Iran, it changes, hourly. But that is understandable given the confusion of who and what is governing Iran. Imagine if Biden were president now. We didn't know who was governing Iran, but who was governing the United States. Now Biden, now as we look back historically, who since he was using an auto ban, since it has now become clear that very often he didn't authorize what was signed, which technically makes all of it illegal and non-binding. Except to go undo all that would be a disaster, right? All these people who were appointed really weren't appointed, which means all of their actions are invalid. And oh my goodness! But in any event, uh, we're not really sure who's in charge in Iran. There's a pretty good working theory that the IRGC is in charge. Um, it doesn't mean that others don't have a role, but as we saw with the opening and the closing of the strait, the political leadership, Aragachi, the foreign minister, the president, who announced rather boldly that the strait would be open, and what they really wanted to do was Trump, uh, and rather than contest his boycott, they wanted to make it unnecessary by saying, well, now the strait is open, and people can go through. And that was one version. And quickly it was modified to, but with our guidance. Now, left out of that was the original proposition that got Trump to blockade, which was you got to pay us. They were looking for fees of like $1 million or $2 million, by the way, which is, a shakedown. But there is a gangster element to the mullahs and the regime. Not a gangster element. They are, among other things, gangsters. Uh, Trump really, with a brilliant strategy, just cut that into that immediately by doing the boycott. And what Iran didn't realize, they say, is that when they agreed to open the strait or to cooperate in the opening of the strait, they didn't realize that Trump was going to continue his of Iranian ships. So yes, they can say we're going to open the strait, but they're not going to be allowed to bring their own ships through, which is really important because what Trump is trying to demonstrate and make clear from now and forever is they do not control the Strait of Hormuz. It does not belong to Iran. There's no canal there. This isn't like Egypt. This isn't like Panama in America. They didn't build it. God built it. It's an international waterway. It is piracy for them to try to collect, which what they were doing. So what Trump has vindicated, as his predecessor Thomas Jefferson did with the Barbary pirates, is bullshit. You can't do that. And we got the Navy to make it impossible for you to do it. Now that has resulted in several real hairy situations. the Tuska was one of these shadow ships, vessels, tankers, of which there are about 150. And these shadow ships have been used since the time of sanctions to try to avoid sanctions. They're called shadow ships because it's hard to tell what flag they're flying at because they change all the time. And one of them, the Tuska, looks like it was headed to China, and it evaded. And it was kind of like going back and forth in the northern part of the Persian Gulf or Arabian Sea. And we tracked it, found it, and seized it. And plus, we've turned around altogether about 32 of these tankers. One has gotten through and is being followed to make sure it's headed to where it says it's going to head. And at least 5 Iranian linked tankers heading from the Gulf of Oman to Malaysia, suspected of really being headed for China, changed course and never got themselves out of the Gulf, which has now gotten Xi Jinping all upset. And he had a long conversation Monday with Mohammed bin Salman, really the acting prince head of Saudi Arabia, seeking a reopening of the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that's sort of an indirect person to go to. The person really in charge of the opening of the Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz is Donald J. Trump. Because the Iranians can let other ships through, but they can't get their own ships through. And it's the Iranian ships that China is waiting for. 90% of the Iranian oil product that moves through the strait goes to China. Iranian oil makes up about 33% of the oil supply to China. And they've got at least 5 tankers behind. And it has to now, this is probably what occasioned the telephone call from Xi Jinping to MBS. Although he probably doesn't want to call Trump because he doesn't want to be indebted, particularly with he doesn't want Trump to have a chit for this negotiation that's coming up. So it's going to remain this way. Of all the Trump is very difficult to predict, and he's made himself that way so that he keeps them off guard and off balance. But I think one of the things that you can be certain of is he's not lifting that blockade until that whole Strait of Hormuz situation is fixed, because that has had a vast impact on the economy of the whole world, and he doesn't want Iran to have that kind of power. So I don't see that changing. Whatever else changes, that place is not reopening until everybody can go through. There's the big question that was raised, and hopefully the Security and Exchange Commission, the Security and Exchange Commission, or the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or both, will take a look at this. But a lot of very suspicious trading that went on in anticipation of actions taken during this present war. And we've got to know the answer to these. The New York Times noted more than 150 polymarket accounts that placed numerous bets. They say hundreds of bets, predicting a U.S. strike on Iran the last time we did. And then on March 23, they saw almost $600 million in oil futures trading just about 15 minutes before Trump said he would hit their power plants. And in January, this is really very upsetting. An unknown party with a just opened account on Polymarket placed a $30,000 bet on the capture of Nicolas Maduro. And this unknown party made 400 grand on that. So I don't know that you can prohibit this kind of betting. I think it's unseemly and I think it's sick. The level of betting that we've gone to, it's like what we've done with marijuana. The idea was, oh, gee, if you just let them have marijuana, it'll go nowhere, no further. And in fact, what's happened is 3 times more people now use it, and it is a heck of a lot more powerful. And now we're finding out, if these things weren't suppressed before, that marijuana is much more dangerous than we thought, particularly to the cognitive function. And we didn't know that. Before that, we didn't have these tests. Now we've got numerous tests showing that it also contributes to Alzheimer's, that it contributes to mental defects of different kinds, and it has a propensity to do damage to the areas of the brain that prevent violence. What we're seeing with these gambling things is that this is also a very, very difficult addiction, and it can destroy people. And it also can lead to this betting on political results, like war. I imagine right now you could place a bet as to whether or not the U.S. is going to strike Iran, or, as Iran is now threatened, whether they are going to take action because the U.S. is not stopping the blockade. Tonight or earlier today, they made a threat when they made it clear they're not showing up at the negotiation. And so the U.S. appears to be in the position that it is ready, willing, and able to negotiate. And Iran is saying, no, we will not negotiate until you lift the illegal blockade and you make compensation for the Iranian property that you seize. Now, how long they're going to stick to that, I don't know. Is this just stretching it out? Could be. Although I think that for Iran, you've got to almost have like a little chart, the A strategy, the B and C. Because I think there are different factions in Iran, and I don't know ultimately I don't know for sure who's calling the shots. I do believe it's the IRGC. And I think most people believe that. Well, there was an interesting column put in the Wall Street Journal today, almost as a Declaration of Independence, by my good friend Alan M. Dershowitz. And Alan Dershowitz has officially changed his registration from Democrat to Republican, although he points out that he has serious disagreements with the Republican Party on issues like abortion, and I don't know what else there would be, but largely on the issue of Israel, because he has come to the conclusion that the Democrat Party is the single biggest opponent of the state of Israel of any significance, and that all but 7 Democratic senators voted for an arms embargo against Israel at a time in which they're really fighting for their life. And he although he says that there is some anti-Semitism in the Republican Party, and on the right, it is nothing in comparison to the basically systemic Semitism that exists within the Democrat Party. And he's right about that. He's very much right about it. And if that's one of the main issues that affects you, you just in good conscience can't be a Democrat. And the thing about Alan that's amazing is he acts on his conscience. He did it even as a defense lawyer. He does it as a person. I think all of you throughout America know about the case of, maybe the world, I don't know, the case of the NYPD Sergeant Eric Duran, who was convicted by a judge. It was a judge trial. His lawyer waived a jury, which always is a strategy that's questionable. But under these circumstances, I don't think that's really the cause of the problem. And he was found guilty of assault, um, as well as manslaughter, for throwing a cooler at a fleeing drug criminal. This uh, this uh, um, this criminal had engaged in a buy and bust transaction with a police officer. A buy and bust transaction is been going on since I was a young prosecutor in the 70s. And it's basically a police officer or a drug enforcement agent going undercover and purchasing drugs um, from a drug dealer and then arresting him, so that you have a very, very clear evidence. And because it's so hard to get people, in on the inside who are going to testify, and when they do, their credibility is attacked so much. If you get an undercover buy, you usually have tape recording pictures and things that make it very, very clear that the person is selling drugs. So when this guy was caught doing it, and as soon as he was caught, he ran away. And Sergeant Duran took a cooler, a typical picnic cooler, and threw it at him to stop him. And he fell down and accidentally hit his head on the cement, some area of the cement, and it killed him. And so the officer was not throwing it at him to kill him. The officer was throwing at him to stop him, so that he didn't flee the arrest, and then spend the next 2 months destroying the lives of young people by selling them drugs until they got caught again. I have no idea how this is not justifiable on the part of a police officer to do this. It would seem to me he could have shot at him. But the district attorney's office, which is vehemently anti-police and just as strongly pro-criminal, indicted him. And this judge, who should be who's a disgrace, but he's pretty much indicative of the politically appointed judges in New York. They are all politically appointed with a phony election. There are no Republicans. So it's a as I always use Engamoron, the judge who conducted the unbelievably sick trial involving Trump's property. Um, he's been elected 3 times. Pretty impressive, huh? Elected 3 times, except he never had an opponent. So he was effectively was appointed by the county leader of Manhattan, the Democrat county leader of Manhattan. This judge would have been appointed. Well, I don't know. Is he a criminal court judge? He'd have been appointed by the mayor then, if he's a criminal court judge. If he isn't a criminal, if he, I don't think he's a Supreme Court judge. They describe him as Bronx Judge Guy Mitchell, who gave the police officer a 3 to 9 year prison sentence. Well, he was released on bail on appeal. He wouldn't give the guy bail pending appeal. But in any event, the appellate division gave him bail, which does indicate that at least there are very good questions on appeal. And I think that that's an understatement. So let's see what happens. This is a travesty of justice. And if this man has to spend time in jail, it's a horrible, horrible thing. Jail is difficult on everyone. On a police officer, it's a question of life and death. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with America's Mayor Live. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Motor Vessel Tosca, Motor Vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Okay, we gave the flare. Now we're getting be ready.
There you go. That should give you an idea of what it's like on the high seas. That was the incident that took place about 3 days ago with the Tuska, the Iranian vessel that was apparently headed to China, and that was a shadow ship, meaning a ship that's used to launder transactions to make it look like they're not headed toward. I think what you're seeing there are American, probably naval or Marines, boarding the ship. They either were lowered down on it. I don't think they parachuted. They were lowered down onto the ship from the helicopters and took it over. And I don't think there was any resistance. And we now have the ship. So that's a real shot in the head to Iran. And that's the purported reason that they're not showing up at the at the negotiations in Islamabad. They're not going to show up until the U.S. Answers for that and interference with the Iranian ship, and also lifts the blockade. What that really means is lifts the oil going to China, which is by far the main customer, and it's beginning to feel it. As we pointed out, Xi Jinping called Mohammed bin Jassim yesterday and asked that they open the straits. Now, he's really calling the wrong person. I mean, Mohammed bin Jassim has a great deal of credit with the president, but he really doesn't have control over whether it's going to be open or not. His feelings on it have to be enormously complex. His country's been hit by Iran numerous times, even though they did nothing to hit Iran. Instead of hitting Israel and the United States, it was Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and these other places that were hit by Iran. So who knows what his actual position is? But as you see, I think with the tweet that's up there now, the USS Spruance was the American vessel that intercepted Tuska and is now holding it with the Iranians very, very upset. There also was a seizure that was done outside of the area of the straits by the U.S. because what you should realize is that we are conducting a worldwide blockade. We're conducting a worldwide blockade of Iranian vessels that are subject to sanction. So we reserve the right to interfere with them anywhere, and we did with one in the Indian Ocean. I think it was yesterday, and so that's another one that's been taken. And that we don't have an exact count on the number of ships that have been turned around without having to be taken, but we know of at least 6 distinct ones that were headed to, we believe, China. They appear to be headed to Malaysia, but I don't think Malaysia needs all 6. This has been a practice they've been using to avoid sanctions for some time. They falsify the destination of the ship. They change the registration of the ship. It'll sail under different names at different times, all done to try to evade sanctions, which is now becoming impossible because of the presence of large numbers of American ships and very, very close American tracking to squeeze them very, very hard. So the Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez de Rima, resigned. Now, there are any number of allegations of misconduct against her. They all seem to be, they don't seem to be related to any one thing. And I haven't paid as much attention to it as I probably should have, but I'll take a look at it and see what I can tell you about it or what I can garner from it tomorrow. Israel now has slowed down in its hits against Hezbollah. It's only now it'll only respond as Hezbollah factions that are not part of the ceasefire with Lebanon. If they break the ceasefire, that has happened a couple of times, and they've had hit back at Hezbollah. Remember, Israel is not at war with Lebanon. Israel is at war with Hezbollah, which really occupies Lebanon. And for 20 years, the Lebanese government and the UN have promised to either limit their activities or get rid of them, and they haven't done either. So now Netanyahu and Trump have agreed that Israel and Lebanon will enter into a peace, but Lebanon will help ferret out the remaining factions in Hezbollah. So if you see some military activity up there, don't be surprised, and it is not necessarily a violation of the ceasefire. Now, this is not the ceasefire um, that Iran wanted. Iran wanted a ceasefire so that Hezbollah could be saved and rearmed and reconstituted, because Hezbollah is their most effective and almost absolutely necessary proxy, because they offer so much defense to Iran. So, yep, they're complaining about it, but they're not getting anywhere. This may account for the fact that they're not showing up at the peace negotiations, because they say as long as there's a blockade, there's no peace. You got to figure out which is which, right? Meanwhile, Israel is also continuing its activities against Hamas, as Hamas takes violent action in Gaza. Israel continues its effort to wipe out Hamas. If that Hamas is not under any ceasefire, peace treaty, peace negotiation, they were supposed to disarm as part of the ceasefire that was agreed to some time ago. They never have. So therefore, Israel will respond in kind when that violation manifests itself and they're using their arms. On some other issues, the stock markets are doing exceedingly well. I think today, and Ted, if you're listening, maybe you could check on this for me. But I think they ended. Most of them ended higher again today. Yesterday, they all ended higher. And but I don't know how that's going to be affected by the breakdown now in the peace talks, in the sense that no one is being sent there by Iran, so you really can't have peace talks if it's just the United States and Pakistan. And as far as I can tell, the U.S. has not sent either any of its negotiators. I had thought originally that Jared and Steve Witkoff had gone, but no, they were at the White House today. So for there to be peace talks, it would take, if Iran decided that they were going to send people to the peace talks, they couldn't take place really for about 2 days, given the fact that everybody's got to get there to Islamabad. So I don't know exactly what this extension. I don't know exactly what this extension of the ceasefire means. The president extended today at the last minute, because tomorrow was the deadline, and if they didn't open the Gulf and agree to it, which they agreed to, and then reversed, I'm talking about Iran now, we were going to start bombing them again. But the president has put that off to give them an opportunity, give Iran an opportunity to put together a proposal. The president said because the government is so fractured, he was prevailed upon by the Pakistani government to give them more time to put together a proposal, and that once that proposal is submitted and evaluated, at that point, a decision will be made as to whether or not to continue to fight, which was supposed to start again tomorrow. Now, I believe that condition was poorly phrased. It says that the ceasefire will remain in effect until Iran has the opportunity to submit a proposal, which makes it sound like they cannot submit for 3 months and they'll get 3 more months to build up their military might. I think that's going to be pretty much in Trump's determination as to whether or not, if they don't agree and if they don't negotiate, when he resumes and finishes off what has to be done. And one of the reporters in the Wall Street Journal made it clear, and I think this is true, that this is now President Trump's war to win or lose. If this regime is in place 6 months from now, I think the reporter is correct. It'll be viewed as a loss. And on the other hand, if they are kicked out, it'll be something American presidents have really wanted to do, but haven't had the, what would you want to call it, the determination to get it done. So actually, since the ceasefire in Gaza, the Israelis have knocked off another 750 Palestinians. And yesterday they hit Khan Yunis again, which you remember was a big source of battle between Israel, if there really was battle by Hamas, whatever Hamas was able to mount in terms of some kind of defense. We offer our condolences really to Senator Warner. Senator Warner was the former governor of Virginia, as well as now a United States Senator from Virginia. And I think you know him. He's a more prominent Democrat than most. His daughter, Madison, who was his eldest daughter, had juvenile diabetes, and she lived to the age of 36, which is a credit to her courage. He has two other daughters, Jillian and Eliza. But there's a terrible loss for him, and he has our deepest sympathies, and he has also our prayers to God to give his family peace was something that is just almost impossible to deal with, the loss of your child. God bless him and his family. You know, one of the things that's enormously frustrating is when the Democrats keep talking about increasing the amount of spending on whether it's the healthcare programs or the income programs or the giveaway programs, or because I know, and I've known since the beginning of the Great Society, that a great deal of that money is stolen, and that the level of stealing is remarkably high. I always use a little shock therapy to get you to think about this correctly. The budget of the state of New York is more than 2 times the budget of the state of Florida. And Florida has about 2 million more people. Now, how can that be? How can it be that Florida manages to get by on 120 billion, and it takes New York about 260 billion dollars to get by? It's because they cheat a lot more in New York. They steal a lot more in New York. But look, and it's all happens all over America, particularly, not exclusively, but particularly in Democrat cities. A couple of examples that are among the most prominent. Mayor Bill de Blasio's universal preschool program. The city has paid out $99.3 million, $100 million, and they used it to rent 28 buildings. That was half a decade ago, and none of them has been opened. What happened to the $99.3 million? California spent $37 billion to solve homelessness, and homelessness is basically during that period of time doubled. And no one knows where the money went, or most of it went. The state of California has spent 14 billion on a high-speed rail, and they don't have a single track laid down yet. They spent 14 billion thinking about it. You don't think that's kickback money? Well, then you're very naive. In Minnesota, feeding our future is drowning in fraud. The first indication was $1 billion. Now we're up to as high as 9. And more than 200 billion in theft and fraud from the COVID era relief funds have been located. And Speaker Johnson estimates that about 50 billion a year is stolen from the Medicaid program. Now these are numbers that are astounding. And when you think about how the Democrats want to raise spending and how they want to tax the rich and then tax other people, you say to yourself, what is it for? It's in order to maintain a corrupt government. And one of the major systemic problems we have in this country is corruption. It isn't just high taxes, it's corruption. And when we look at government and the spread of big government, some definable percentage of that spread is for smoke and mirrors, for nothing that's going to aid anyone. If you look at it this way, if the money intended for the poor in Harlem or other poor areas ever got there over the last 50 years, they'd all be rich. Instead, the elected representatives got rich because they interrupted the flow of a lot of that money. So that's something that has to be taken very, very seriously if we're going to have any opportunity to really check what the heck is going on. The situation in Ukraine is also one that has gotten off the main focus. I mean, it's sort of like slipped to the back pages. But everything that I can tell, slowly but surely, the Ukrainians are making progress in pushing back what had been a Russian expansion, modest expansion, but expansion. So I don't know when we're going to turn back to that negotiation, nor do I know what price, and I do think they have to pay a price. Putin's going to have to pay for assisting for assisting Iran in their efforts now to kill Americans. That's not about Ukraine and Russia. It's about Ukraine and Americans. Just like when we talk about the Iranians and the American interest in getting rid of the regime of terror, they have killed significant numbers of Americans indiscriminately and on purpose. And they vow to do it every Friday, if not every day. So if you need any justification, would seem to be that's it. And I would say among the structural changes, massive changes that have to be made in the years left with this administration, because it's the only one that does it, and that is to straighten out the corruption and the spending of government money. The amounts there are more than enough to make up for whatever additional spending these people want. You just reduce the amount of corruption and the money is there. So instead of New York spending 2.5 times Florida, let's say they spend 1.5. You're not going to have to raise taxes for a long time if you're able to accomplish that. Money is money, and if it's flowing out, it's flowing out. William McGurn at the Wall Street Journal makes a very, very dramatic point about President Trump. And like every president, he obviously will increasingly have more, if he doesn't already, more and more of a concern for his legacy as he moves toward the end of this one term that he has left. And McGurn has said that his administration is going to be judged by this war, if it's viewed as a victory or a defeat. And I think McGurn is right. And a defeat means that when you're making that decision, this reign of terror and this government better be gone. That's victory. If they wiggle their way through and they negotiate their way to a point where they can continue to talk and they can continue to, then it'll be no victory. There'll be, in fact, a sense that the president has failed. And I think that the terms of that decision now are about as clear as they can be. It looks like the Pope has slowed down a little in his efforts against the president, but the president has posed two questions to the Pope, and these don't necessarily have to be considered attacks, but those. But these are legitimate questions that I think the president is asking. Why does the Pope think it's fine for Iran to have a nuclear weapon and to kill 42,000 unarmed protesters? When the Pope made reference to these out of control warmongers who commit, the Pope has said he was not referring to the president. Okay, we'll take him at his word. I don't see how you can do anything other than that with the Pope. But the Pope should explain why he has reservations about what his country, still an American, is doing when in fact Iran poses a threat to, I'm not going to say exaggerated, to the continuation of the world, but something similar to that. I mean, with nuclear weapons, you can do massive catastrophic damage. Plus, they've killed so many as part of their terrorist regime that the basis for just war against them is about as clear as it can possibly be. So the president poses to the Pope, why does the Pope think it is fine for Iran to have a nuclear weapon and to kill 42,000 unarmed protesters, including the two that we noted yesterday from the MEK, and then the larger group whose pictures and identities we gave to you, of whom about 6 of those have already been executed, and any number of others remain in solitary confinement, which is their effective death row. By and large, the practice that followed is when the regime of terror decides it's going to do torture or it's going to do an execution, they move into solitary confinement for a while. And then from solitary confinement, you go from bad to worse. So it's going to be very, very telling as to whether Iran, in fact, follows through on any attacks on us after the warning about taking ships of theirs all over the world, because that's a pretty bold proposition to present to them, and we'll have to see if they contest it or not, right? We'll have to keep close watch on what happens in the next 24 hours, because tomorrow was the day in which everything is supposed to either be decided or we're going to end up with a shooting war back again. And the president has put that off, giving them time to present something before he has to pull the trigger on doing battle against them again. And I can't imagine why they're resisting as much as they are when even the strategy of stringing us along is available and they're not taking it. Uh, that's it's something that we'll have to consider with greater intensity. And we'll see if we can get a few guests to discuss it because it really is important in trying to figure out how this is all going, how this is all going to end. I will tell you that I haven't varied very much from where I was when I came back from Paris. When I was in Paris last night, I came back today on the plane. And that is that I just don't see how this doesn't end up with more warfare between the United States and Iran and with Israel as our steadfast partner. Um, Iran is just not making the moves that have to be made to get this resolved. And it appears as if the country is in the hands of people that are as aggressive and maybe somewhat more aggressive than Khomeini, or at least not as sophisticated in trying to carry things out. Because Khomeini was hardly a soft touch by any means. But he had been in office for so long that he had the security to make whatever decision that he thought was right for them. Except the man was afflicted with an enormous amount of mental illness, as are the IRGC commanders. So that's extremely difficult. It's really extremely difficult to deal with. So we will keep a close eye on what's going on there. We'll try to get to you the things that you don't get to see and you don't get to hear from elsewhere. We'll keep in contact with our sources that keep us pretty well informed as to what's actually going on within Iran. I do believe that over the next 24 hours, whether they follow through on their threat to do something about our blockade or not, will tell us something about the capacity that they have for warfare. Almost any nation of any substance would try to break a blockade. And if they don't make an attempt, they have it now for 4 or 5 days. If they don't make an attempt to do it, it really means they can't, which tells you a lot about how vulnerable they are to being finished off completely, which would be a great contribution to the world. And I do not understand, and I think that's one of the things that the president was illustrating in the question that he put to the Pope, and that is, how can you condemn America for trying to prevent an insane body of people from getting control of a catastrophic weapon that can destroy large portions of the world and contaminate it thereafter? And why isn't this in your calculations? Because we could sure use that. So we'll keep posted on that. I mentioned this on the earlier show, but I'm going to show this to you on this show, and we don't really have the time to read it again. I read most of it on the earlier show. This is a column in the Wall Street Journal. It's called The Book of J.D. King James Version, and it's in biblical language, and it's it's about Trump's crusade war against Iran, and also about the problems with the Democrats, and it is a very witty and very good. It's by Gerard Baker. So I'd get my hands on it and read it. I think you'll find it both very useful as an analysis of what's going on, and also extremely funny. And we need a little humor at this stage, don't we? And so let's see what happens. There's a blockade still going on. It's the China is seeking relief from it. China can certainly, instead of calling Mohammed bin Jassim, make more sense if they called Iran and told them to get on it and clean out that strait and end this war. I don't know if that would have too much good, but when you don't have too many allies left, if the main one is who's focusing the money on you calls, it may make a very, very big difference. So we'll be hanging around New York tomorrow. Who knows what we can pick up about what's going on here in the Communist Republic of New York, the Communist Dictatorship of New York, with Mayor Mondumi in charge. See what the attitude of the people is, because we got here late and didn't really have a chance to ask many questions. Although the little that we did, people are in a panic over this left-wing maniac who is a supporter of groups that are extremist Muslim groups. Let's see. So we thank you very, very much for listening in. We're going to ask you, please, 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 to pray for the people that are on death row in Tehran and now in the other areas of Iran, because the murderous, insane regime is now doing executions even in remote parts of Iran, so they can call attention to if they want, or not, as they did yesterday with the 2 MEK people that they executed. I really do think it's time that everyone learn more about MEK, because they are a great hope, and the fact a great hope of being able to put together a government that will, number one, make peace in the Middle East very, very possible, and aid peace in the Middle East, will also aid a modernization and a new rethinking of the Muslim religion that's needed. And people like Ataturk and some of the great imams of 40 and 50 years ago knew that was necessary, and Iran has set that effort way, way back. And that'll have something to do with peace all over the world. So please pray for the people of Iran. Pray for the people of Israel. Pray for the people of Ukraine. Pray for us. Pray for the people of New York. And pray for our president. And that God continue to guide him and give him the strength and wisdom to handle this very, very difficult, unbelievable questions that have to do with our survival, really. So we'll be back tomorrow. You come and listen at 7 on Lindell and at 8 on X, and we will have some real scoops for you on New York, as well as what's going on in Iran. God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past, and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply